All right, welcome into Sports Bit. It's Wednesday, March 23rd. I'm Pauly, alongside Teddy with the biggest glass of tea you're ever going to see. I wonder what else is in that tea, baby. We got the deep dive today. It is going to be Sweet 16 futures and props. Big game breakdown, 4 huge games coming up. Heat, Spurs, Warriors, Clippers, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and Duke, Oregon. A lot to get to coming up, and you know you're going to want that play of the day. Teddy, when we watch all these games here with March Madness, we see the same commercials, and sometimes that can be a bad thing.
Oh, my God. I mean, this is the time of year. Every March, right around here, you're like, if I see this commercial one more time, I'm going to rip somebody's head off. And here's what I mean. Look, Charles Barkley, big Charles Barkley fan. Samuel L. Jackson, everybody loves Samuel L. Jackson. Spike Lee, always been a Spike Lee fan. 3 of the coolest guys that you'll ever see, right? You know, They're cool. They're hip. And they're singing the Pina Colada song? Oh, my God. And then this is a song, Paul. This song, I swear, I heard it when I was a kid, and I'm like, okay, I'll never have to hear this song ever again. No one's ever going to play it. It was been out of my head for 20 years, 30 years, God knows how long. Now you're walking around all day humming this song, dude. It's a freaking nightmare. How did those 3 guys get mixed up with Rupert Holmes? Is this the kind of guy you want to be? I'm telling you, I would rather watch DeAndre Jordan screaming about his ring being stolen in drag, pimping for State Farm for a month, than have to watch that Pina Colada commercial one more time. Please let it end. Making me crazy, Paul. Really is.
Remember a couple of years ago, it was the Napa ad? No, Napa know-how?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, thanks for getting that one back
brutal.
in my head. Now I got Napa know-how going again. Sure.
That was, I know. 3 cool guys, and all 3 of them singing that song. Brutal.
It can't be. And it's not just a little clip. It's like the whole commercial is them singing that song. It goes on indefinitely. It's endless. It's a nightmare. Please let it stop. I'm not getting a Capital One card. Not happening.
It is bad. All right, time for bad beats. And we'll get to wrong sides in a second. How about, we're going hockey, baby. That's right, the Flyers. They led 2-0 with 1:07 left, and they were on the power play. They lost the game in a shootout. They're fighting for a playoff spot. Brutal beat if you had the Flyers. I mean, how do you give up? They give up a shorthanded goal with 1:07, and then they give up another one with 8 seconds left, and of course, you knew what was coming in the shootout.
Yeah, and of course, people ask, why don't we talk hockey every night? It's real simple. Paul, you a hockey expert?
No.
I am not either. And if we don't know enough, and we're not going to try to pretend to be experts on sports that we're not experts on. It's just not that way. If, when we talk about a U.S.-based audience, it goes in this order. It's football, basketball, baseball, in that order. And there's just not a hot demand for non-point spread sports. So when something hockey happens, happy to talk about it, but it's not going to be a regular part of the show because it's not our area of expertise. Just that simple.
Yep, well said there. The Hornets laying 6 against the Nets. Bogdanovich from the parking lot to put it on 5. Oh, man, that was brutal.
Oh, yeah, it really was. 3 seconds left. Bojan Bogdanovich. I've read a couple of quotes lately out of Brooklyn talking about how this guy and Donald Sloan, his backcourt mate, have really gotten better in recent weeks. Sloan assists, Bogdanovich with the 3, and -6 is good. Oh, it's not good anymore. Of course, it was a 3-point game with 35 seconds to play, so it wasn't a true right side loser, but still pretty tough beat if you had Charlotte minus last night.
What'd you think of the 2 NIT games?
I heard some talk that the Creighton BYU game was a tough beat. No, it wasn't. That's another one with a 3 in the closing seconds. But that one made the final score look closer than it was. The Cougars controlled the flow down the stretch of that contest. But, what about the Valpo-St. Mary's game? Talk about a huge swing. I mean, St. Mary's is up, 31-24, late first half. And the Gales took a ton of money in that game. They were +5 at the open, +4.5. That got bet down to as low as +3. So they're up by 7 late first half, 31-24. By their next basket, they were trailing 40-31, a 16-1 Valpo run, and they never cut it close enough to be within covering range the rest of the way. So that one Crusaders run to close out the first half and open up the second really took the steam out of St. Mary's.
And how about the Thunder? They finally won a close game.
Yeah. I mean, they're tied 99-99 with 3 minutes to play. They still didn't cover, though.
Yeah.
But at least they got the win. That's something that OKC's had a real hard time doing in recent weeks.
Here's a quick reminder. Next week we start MLB previews as we shift towards baseball season. So you can look forward to that starting next week. Coming up, big game breakdown. We'll go rapid fire with 4 games on SportsBit. Betting Insight today. Welcome back to SportsBit, Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy, time for big game breakdown. Let's go rapid fire with 4 games. We'll start in the association. The Heat on the road to take on the Spurs. San Antonio 11.5, 196. Tricky thing with a photo of a shooter is you can only see the release. You have to guess whether or not the shot went in. There hasn't been an issue with Danny Green. It's been brick alert, baby. Brick City with Green. Look at this graph. At pre-All-Star break, his field goal percentage was 38.2. Since March 1st, 32.4. Three-point percentage, 35.9. Since March 1st, 20%, Teddy. He can't make a damn thing.
Yeah, and that's a big part of the reason why San Antonio's offense has really been sluggish in recent weeks is that Danny Green's gone ice cold. 4 of 17 versus the Warriors and Hornets last 2 games. 1 of 10 from three-point range. And, Danny Green, the guy gets no pub, no hype, no love. He's a key player in Popovich's rotation, and with him being this ice cold, it's been a real problem for San Antonio on the offensive end in recent weeks. Good thing their defense has been nothing but tremendous. But, this has been a really one-sided series, Paul, hasn't it?
Yes, the Spurs have got the best of the Heat. It goes back to when they met in the finals the last time. And also, we talked about Miami, too. Last night, they scored 35 points in the first quarter. They've done that 4 times, all with Joe Johnson.
Joe Johnson's been a difference maker for that team. But let me talk about this series for a minute, because the Spurs, again, since the finals, dating back to that win over the finals, the last 6 meetings have all been double-digit San Antonio wins. They're 3-0 straight up and against the spread in 3 meetings with Miami since beating the Heat in the finals. And every one of those victories, again, has come by double-digit margins. San Antonio hasn't just beaten Miami. They've owned Miami. It is a back-to-back for the Heat coming out of New Orleans, but they weren't really tested by the Pelicans last night, and they did have a couple of days off, 2 full days off prior to that ball game.
Game number 2, Clippers and the Warriors. Warriors 10, 226 the total. Forget the numbers. The Clippers lately on defense have been dazed and confused. You look at this. They faced no Gasol, no Conley, no AD, no Anderson, and no Gordon. They still gave up 113 and 109 points to the Grizzlies and the Pelicans. Unacceptable in back-to-back games. And, this is a terrible timing because now they get Golden State, who's dropped 110 on them, 112 on them into 3 meetings so far.
Yeah, in all 3 meetings. And, look at the graph right here. The defense, very clear. Full season numbers, Clips good. 101 points a game, ranked number 7. 101 points per 100 possessions, ranked number 7 in the NBA. Those are playoff numbers. Those are, conference finals type numbers. No problem. The last 8 games for the Clips, they've allowed nearly 111 points per 100 possessions. That's good for number 27 in the NBA. And, the last 5, they're going up 110 points per game on 50% shooting. They're 1-6 against the spread last 7. The only win and cover came against a team that doesn't play any defense, the Houston Rockets. And you wonder if this team's really put in so much effort without Blake Griffin that they finally started to wear down. That being said, despite all those ugly numbers against Golden State, they're 2-1 against the spread against the Warriors this year. They covered +4 and +7.5. But Pauly, the Warriors got some issues too right now. Maybe Steph Curry in particular.
Well, I just think it was the Spurs being physical with them on Saturday. How many times is he going to go 1 of 12 shooting from 3? And Thompson only made 1 3 as well. A little bit of a slump, long season, but I think the Curry and company will break out of it here as they try to break the Bulls' record.
Well, look, the last 2 games, now it wasn't just San Antonio. Curry's 10 of 35 from the floor, 3 of 21 from three-point range. You wonder if he, too, is starting to wear down a little bit. This is the time of year that kind of thing happens to even the elite shooters. That being said, the Warriors do play 8 of their next 9 at home, so they're going to have a chance for Curry to rest up and take some breathers, maybe even in this game.
To college now. What a card. What a great four matchups we have on Thursday. We did two yesterday, two more today. Let's go to Anaheim. Duke and Oregon. The Ducks 3, 156.5. The West region, all four round of 32 games came down to the final possession ATS, all decided by 3 points or less. And you look at the coaching matchup. Coach K, 22 previous Sweet 16s. Dana Altman, 0 trips to the Elite Eight, and Oregon hasn't made the Final Four since 1939. We've talked about this. Everyone knows it, but it's worth repeating. The ACC, great. 6 teams in the Sweet 16. Pac-12's been a disaster. Garbage. Is Oregon the only team to make it to the Sweet 16? But Teddy, is the Duke lack of depth a non-issue here?
It might be, when you think about it, because I've certainly heard that. Because Oregon, like Duke, also has a 7-player rotation. But the way these two teams make up their 7-player rotations, completely different. Duke, the starters get all the minutes, all the points. They got a couple guys that can come in off the bench and fill spots. For Oregon, look at this. Player minutes. And this is a great graph to explain exactly why Oregon's depth, with the same rotation, same number of players in rotation as Duke, but Oregon's depth is better. Nobody playing more than 32 minutes per game. All 7 contributors playing at least 20 minutes per game. That's Dylan Cook, Dorsey, Benson, Boucher, Benjamin, and Bell. Team with a bunch of Bs. And the fact that these guys are kind of interchangeable, Altman can mix and match basically any combination. They all score at least 5.9 points, 6 have over 100 rebounds, 4 have at least 66 assists, all 7 have at least 24 steals. So even though it's a 7-man rotation, they play the equivalent of what a 9 or a 10-player rotation might. Oregon's depth, not an issue in my mind, although Duke's depth, not nearly as much of an issue in the first game of the sequence as it would be on the 48-hour turnaround, should they survive and advance by pulling the upset over the Ducks.
And Plumlee's got to be careful. He fouled out against North Carolina Wilmington. He's got to be aware and back off of some of these shooters because he can't get into foul trouble again, and that's been a problem for quite some time. See if we agree on this. I think it was a good thing that they got a scare against St. Joe's because Oregon has been kicking ass and taking names for about a month. I think they're going to be ready to go, and you get a big effort Thursday against the Dukies. What do you think?
Are you surprised by this point spread?
It opened 1 and then was bet up to 3, so I think people are looking at the travel and Duke playing in Anaheim, and the last time they were there, they got ran out by Arizona. So what would you think it should be higher?
I don't think Duke's getting a whole lot of respect. And when we think back to their run last year in the NCAA tournament to win the title, once again, in that tournament, they didn't get a whole lot of respect. Big moneymaker for anyone who were backing Blue Devils a year ago. I'm not convinced Oregon's the better of these two teams. I'm not. But obviously, we'll find out tomorrow night.
Another great matchup, Texas A&M and Oklahoma. Oklahoma 2.5, 146. The Aggies off the biggest last-minute comeback in NCAA history. But time to regroup. This is not a 24 or 48-hour turnaround. They have a lot of time off the win against Northern Iowa. They start 4 senior starters. Oklahoma starts 3. And since day one, when we started this show on SportsBet, we've been telling you Oklahoma is tired and they're running out of gas. Look at this, 3-17 ATS last 20 is chalk. 0-6 last 6. All 3 covers as a double-digit favorite. And Lon Kruger, I don't know what's going on in the huddle there, but Teddy, he's going to draw something up and do a better job because they couldn't run out and put away VCU and Bakersfield, and the games were in their backyard. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma the only team to go 2-0 straight up, 0-2 against the spread in the first 2 rounds of the big dance. But let's not underestimate the experience factor here. And really the experience differential between these two teams when it comes to coming back for the second weekend. This is the 5th Sweet 16 for Lon Kruger, Buddy Hield, Ryan Spangler, Isaiah Cousins, and Jordan Woodward. All 5 of those guys were in the starting lineup, all 4 of those senior starters were in the starting lineup of their loss to Michigan State in this round at the Carrier Dome in Syracuse last March, where they lose 62-58, a 4-point loss. So this is absolutely a battle-tested veteran Oklahoma team, even though they haven't had the success in this round that they might have hoped for. They've been here before. A&M isn't. I mean, Texas A&M pulled off one of the greatest, maybe the greatest, final-minute rally in NCAA tournament history. But that also came after the Aggies spent most of the game standing around looking at each other like they hadn't been there before because, of course, they had it. Look at this graph. Career tournament minutes of anyone on the A&M roster prior to this season, that would be a big, fat 0. Sooners have really struggled in this role, but they do have the experience factor working in their favor.
And Buddy Hield. We got you again, Teddy.
Yeah, I keep saying hi. And I watch him all. I mean, I've watched him 50 times this season.
We got you 3 times.
I know. He's just one of these guys. When you get a guy's name wrong in your head, it just stays wrong in your head forever. It's a nightmare for me.
Deep dive, topic of the day coming up. Props and futures with the Sweet 16, plus the play of the day. That's coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today. Okay, deep dive and topic of the day. Let's talk some props and some futures with the Sweet 16. How about this? Over under 1.5 1 seeds to make the Final Four. Over minus $1.80, Teddy. I like that over.
I mean, it certainly makes sense when you're talking about the fact that all 4 number 1 seeds have survived and advanced right now. But minus 180 is not a bargain price. That being said, not only are the 4 number 1 seeds all still standing, they're all going to be favored in every remaining game in their region. So, yeah, I don't like the minus 180, but you know what? I'd rather bet the over 1.5 number 1 seeds to make the Final Four than to bet the under at the plus price. This is a spot where if you want it, you got to lay a little bit of juice.
Minus $1.60 will a 1 seed win the tournament.
And that one I'm not as excited about. I'd rather have the 1.5 1 seeds to make the Final Four, but then then lay $1.60 with a 1 seed to win the tournament. Because again, we're going to see number 1 seeds get knocked off this week. We're going to see quite possibly more than one. It just doesn't stand out to me as one that I'm particularly excited about laying a $1.60 with.
Okay, how about some long shots? Notre Dame 25-1 to win the East region. I don't like that. They just played Carolina and they got their ass kicked.
Well, no. They're not 25-1 to win the East region today, are they?
Oh, no, excuse me. No, 25-1 to win it all. My fault there, yeah.
Yeah. Big difference. I've got some numbers I'm going to talk about in a minute about the regions themselves. But, I mean, who are the teams to beat right now? Kansas, North Carolina, not Notre Dame.
No.
And not Maryland, not Syracuse, not Miami. Many of those teams are live, and no one's going to be shocked if we see a number 2 seed or a number 3 seed come out and end up winning this tournament. But, I don't want Gonzaga at 20-1 or Maryland at 30-1 or the long shots. I really don't. And the truth of it is, Paul, if you really like one of these long shots, you bet them on the money line in every game and you let it roll. You'll end up making more than you would if you bet them on as a future right now.
Duke 23-1. How about that? There's no respect for the Dukies. And Miami 6-1 to win the region. How about Miami?
6-1 to win the region.
To win the region, yes.
I mean, that to me is a very reasonable price. Is that a widely available number? Because that's a pretty good one. What about Virginia? Because Virginia is a team that you and I have both talked about.
Yes.
They're only minus 140 to come out of the Midwest. You think that's a price worth laying?
That I love. And they have no excuse now. I mean, come on. Their nemesis is out. Sparty got beat. All they have to do is beat Iowa State and the winner of Gonzaga, Syracuse, and they were awesome in the second half against Butler. I love that. $1.40 makes a lot of sense to me with Virginia.
Yeah, well, I mean, everyone from the mascot on down at Virginia went, wahoo, after Michigan State got eliminated. Yeah, that's a bad wahoo joke for Virginia. What am I going to do?
How about some odds before the big dance started, courtesy of the Westgate?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's worth talking about, the biggest dogs to win each region that are still standing. And of course, I use the Westgate Superbook. You could use lines from any sports book, but the Westgate tends to have less juice. They gouge you a little bit less than a lot of the books do. So I like to use their numbers. But Syracuse, the biggest dog still standing to come out of their region here in the Sweet 16. Syracuse was 30-1 to come out of the Midwest prior to the tournament. And the Zags, Gonzaga, was seated lower, but they were only 15-1 to come out of the region, Paul. So the Syracuse, Again, the biggest dog still standing. You see that in the odds to win it all as well. Notre Dame, 25-1 to come out of the East. Again, Wisconsin seeded lower, but the Badgers were only 20-1. So the Fighting Irish and their depth concerns certainly weren't ones that attracted a lot of betting market attention. But that's it for the long shots. In the West, 1, 2, 3, 4 all survive and advance. The biggest long shot still standing was Duke at 6-1 to come out of the West. Again, prior to the tournament starting. And in the South, it's 1, 2, 3, 5, where there was no carnage in that region either. Maryland, Miami, both 8-1 to come out of the South prior to the start of the tournament. And note the respect for Maryland in that number. 8-1 to come out of the South, right there with the number 3 seed. Clearly, the market saw something on Maryland that maybe you and I didn't see, Paul. And perhaps that's why they're here now as one of the surprise teams in the Sweet 16.
Yep. All right. Time for play of the day. We're going betting number 753. The Raptors plus 2.5. The Celtics have really struggled since Crowder went down. 2-4 straight up. 2-4 ATS. And the wins against garbage Philly and the Magic. And they had problems putting them away. We'll take the Raptors plus 2.5. Betting number 753 for the play of the day. And one thing on this, Teddy. What'd you make of the comments by Tyronn Lue Monday that the Cavs aren't all in and going to go crazy to try to get the 1 seed? They're going to sit guys down the stretch.
Well, it certainly, when we talk about Toronto, they're very much in play for the number 1 seed now. Cleveland isn't obsessed with getting that 1 seed, and I don't blame them. The Cavs are, from in my mind, much more important for Cleveland to go into the postseason healthy, rested, and comfortable than with a number 1 seed. They can win a series where they're not the home team in Game 7. And Toronto, of course, has been a team that's had plenty of early outs from recent postseasons. So I agree with Tyronn Lue in that regard, but it also changes the motivation down the stretch for Toronto. The Celtics without Crowder, they've been awful. And you talked about the 2 wins. Both wins should come with an asterisk because they're playing Philly in a blowout spot. They can't pull away in that game. They're playing Orlando in a blowout spot. They can't pull away in that game. Those are concerns for Boston. With Toronto coming to play, the couple of guys for the Raptors are questionable. Valanciunas, Patterson, Johnson, all questionable. 3 key rotation guys for Toronto. But I am expecting at least one of the 3 to suit up, which will leave them with some front court depth. Of course, all we have is a projected line here with Toronto projected in that 2.5 range. I like the Raptors to win the game at pick 'em or better. Toronto's the way we're going to look.
All right, very good. Excellent job as always. We'll be back Thursday on SportsBit. Betting Insight today.